Morning, everybody. It's Tuesday, May 19th, 2020. Another Tuesday on lockdown, another cycle through our virtual learning system. So welcome, everyone, especially honors classes, who's I know day today. And a special happy birthday to Joey Ramone up in heaven. For any of you punk rock fans, his name is really Jeffrey Hyman. He was born in New York City, in Queens. He was practiced Judaism. Try to bring out some features that maybe some of you can relate to. While he was 18, he was diagnosed with OCD. That did not stop him, right? Obstacles do not stop us from reaching our goals. If some of you want to pick up an instrument, maybe during quarantine, but you're like, oh, I'm already too old. No, you're not. You're only a teenager. He didn't start playing the drums or the guitar till he was in high school. So maybe there's some future punk rockers or other various musicians in my classes out there. Unfortunately, he did die at age 49 in the early 2000s from lymphoma, which is a type of cancer. And he's buried in New Jersey in Lyndhurst. So if anyone wants to visit his grave someday when this is all done with, you can. So happy birthday, Joey Ramone. So also, who was else born on this day? I wanted to give a little shout out to Francis Richard Scoobee, who unfortunately is no longer with us because he was one of the Challenger astronauts that died in January of 1986. In fact, he commanded the Challenger mission. Now, the explosion was in no way due to his leadership. It was engineering issues. He was a pilot. He actually was a combat pilot in Vietnam. And speaking of people that served and died in war, our next class will feature something to do with Memorial Day coming up. He did command the Challenger previously in 1984, and that mission was successful. So happy birthday in heaven to Commander Scoobee. Also, on this day, have you guys been putting up on your timelines when I give you some things? We will still, my daughter finds great times to use ice, doesn't she? We will still be putting our timelines together. That's going to be one of your final projects for the year. So if you've been behind on that, maybe if you need to go back and watch some of these and update a few now and then. I know a lot of you have interest when we learned about King Henry and his many wives and Anne Boleyn. I usually do this whole big story on this day every year. So maybe next year when you're sophomores, come past my room on May 19th and I have an artifact to show you. It's something from actually the place where she was beheaded. And there's an interesting story to it. I was going to try to show it on camera here, but then I realized I think the artifact is actually in the STEM building. But Anne Boleyn was the second wife of Henry VIII. So if you're going to put this on your timeline, you would put it with the Protestant Reformation. She's the one who helped encourage Henry to divorce Catherine of Aragon. Remember, the Pope would not grant that divorce, which is why he separated his church from the Roman Catholic Church and to become the Church of England or the Anglican Church. She was tried in what's basically a sham trial. Like, it was not like legit, for adultery, treason, and incest, which there was no basis for. And surprise, surprise, the king got married 11 days later to Jane Seymour, who was actually one of her ladies of the court. A little story, right? We've missed some stories. So I don't want to keep this a long video, but you must hear. So the day she was to be executed, because she was still the Queen of England, the king respected her in some ways. He brought in a special executioner all the way from France, not just some any ordinary Joe Smo was going to execute Anne Boleyn. Also, executions were entertainment for people then. They were spectacles, but they decided to not have them out in public, but behind the closed walls of the Tower of London. So it would only be in view to people of that royal area. The third thing they did to make sure they were so nice was to, yes, my daughter knows, they sharpened the axe. Good job, Aurora. Because sometimes we learned during the Enlightenment with the guillotine, sometimes those axes would take like 3 swipes before they would really be successful. That is not a pleasant way to go. So they also sharpened the knife so her head would go off in one foul swoop, as Shakespeare would say. Now, when she came down, like she was usually very on time for things, she was not on time for coming down for her execution. She had a scarf placed around her neck. Maybe that was symbolically as she came down. And as she knelt down, where she'd have to put her head to be chopped off, she started praying. And so they waited because, you can't just chop someone's head off when you're about to, like, when they're praying. They have to at least say, like, amen, but right, you let them finish. And so they're waiting. And she's like, oh, the more I pray, like, they're not killing me. This is great. Maybe they're changing their hearts. And so on and so forth. And finally, King Henry was like, yeah, enough's enough. And then as she continued to pray, there went her head. So I'll show you that artifact. You stop by next year, May 19th. Put it on your phone calendars now so that next year you remember. All right? You guys can do this. This image here is of the clock is supposedly what King Henry gave them on their wedding day. All right. So now we're going to do the New York Times 90 seconds. I know that story took a little while, but I thought we were we need a good history story. We haven't been sharing those lately. All right, so the New York Times in 90 seconds. The big news story is the WHO having their virtual meetings and the president not being very kind to the WHO right now, saying they are relying too much on China. You can even go to Twitter and read. There's a 4 or 5 page letter that the president posted. And, read primary documents for yourself. Don't just take the New York Times or the BBC or what any news source or whatever says to you. Read the various information and draw your own conclusions. So he threatened to permanently end WHO funding from the United States. Trump also says he's taking, can I say this correctly? Hydroxychloroquine, which is prompting warning from health experts. Apparently, his doctor said it was okay to take. Many doctors, even the one in Fox News, which really usually supports what the president says, said that there's no studies to really confirm that. They have done studies, but none have confirmed that it's helpful. And they said it actually can cause some heart problems. So they said it's actually setting a bad example as well. So take from that what you will. And Walmart online sales are going up because no one wants to buy in person there anymore, right? Another 90 seconds, the BBC, the same top stories as the New York Times because this WHO thing is a big deal. So China is accusing Trump of these smear tactics, saying, you're only accusing us to distract from your poor response to the coronavirus. And that's why you're targeting us right now. And as like I just said, Trump is giving the WHO an ultimatum, like you need to find out how to respond to this better, or we're withdrawing our funding. How much exactly does the U.S. contribute to the WHO? I don't have that number off the top of my head, but that's something worth trying to find out. I believe he gave them 30 days. You may want to check that as well. And similar to the United States, the UK has a high number of unemployment claims. So the BBC is a British newspaper, so that's why they'd be reporting that. So I'm going to move on with 35 seconds to spare. I hope you're impressed. So what are you doing today? So today I have 3 videos posted. The first video is a crash course video by John Green on imperialism. You may like John Green. Maybe you've read his books. His videos are witty and educational. It's 13 minutes long. He speaks super quickly, but it's very informative. He gives some background information that I did not go into in the next 2 videos. Some of the information is covered by your Facts on File assignment. All my regular classes had to do this for their last assignment. So I just want to make sure you're exposed to that information as well. It's not mandatory. They don't have a Google form on it. but it will give you some good background, especially before we get to the World War I unit. There are 2 videos that I've made. One is on the causes of imperialism, one is on the effects, and it's a very broad overview, of course. So the causes is I made last year. The effects I just redid this year. I used to share my video from my old district, but I thought it was worth updating. I will warn you, I know this is going to make you sigh. It's 17 minutes long. I know I tend to rush and talk quickly and mumble in the video, so I just tried to slow it down, relax, go through the information. But you might be like, but no, now that makes it longer. I know what many of you do. I know how many of you speed it up and fast forward it so I sound like a chipmunk. So just continue to do that if that's what you do. But you can, because it's 2 videos, do one now, do one later, you know. You can do it at your own pace. I will take the 2 forms and average them together. I'm sure you'll do fine. If you do them by noon today, I will have them up by this afternoon. That's in no way to encourage you to rush through it, but I know some of you are really effective and get things done bing bang boom first thing in the morning, and I want to reward you for, your efficiency. Okay? Next class we will be doing some more literature of imperialism. And by next week, we'll be starting the World Wars. And I'll be going over our 2 final projects of the year. One is the timeline. So just so you know. But anyway, I do have on YouTube my recitation of a short story by George Orwell, Shooting an Elephant. I know that title is awful. If you want to listen to it, I know I don't want you have to sit there and watch me read a story for 18 minutes. But if you just want to turn it on while you're doing something else, you're cleaning your room, you can listen to the story. So if you have the extra time, you may want to knock that out, and then you can see what you're going to do for it next class. Totally your call, but I know a lot of you guys are really efficient with time management, so I want to give you guys all those options. Okay, I'm proud of all the hard work you've been doing. You guys have been doing great. Thank you for those of you who've been getting things in on time. Thank you for those who don't respond, that you're present at like 2:58. And if you have any questions, let me know. Miss everyone. I hope everyone's safe and well, and hope to see you soon enough.